here on a normal Thursday. Nothing weird going on today. Nothing weird at all. Just your teacher sitting in her classroom, our classroom. Cheers, by the way. Sipping on some bone broth on a Thursday. I mean, just living my best life. We're going to get into lesson 11. And in lesson 11, we're not adding, we're not subtracting, we're multiplying. And it's going to be amazing. We're not multiplying whole numbers. We are actually going to be multiplying whole numbers by decimals. And it's going to be wonderful because we're going to be modeling it in not one, but two different ways. Woohoo! We're going to be modeling this multiplication in the form of the place value chart, which I know you guys love so much, as do I. We're also going to be looking at this multiplication in the form of an area model, and it's going to be wonderful. So let's go. Okay, kiddos, let's get into this. We are on L11. Today is the 27th, and I have a place value chart here. We are going to look at three different expressions, and I want you to be very observant of the wording that I'm using while we are talking these through. So here we have 3 times 2/10. Actually, what we're doing is we're making 3 copies of 2/10. So what we're going to be modeling is this column. So I'm going to show on our place value chart what 2/10 looks like. 1, 2/10. And then, okay, so I have 2/10. I'm going to make 3 copies of 2/10. We need total 3 copies of 2/10. Okay, so do you guys see how we have 1, 2, 3 copies of 2/10? Pretty straightforward here. So 3 times 2/10, or 3 copies of 2/10, is going to be 6/10, because you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/10 there. Pretty cool, huh? Next, let's look at 3 copies of 3/10. First, we're going to model what does 3/10 look like. Well, 3/10, there we have 1, 2, 3/10. Now we need a total of 3 copies of 3/10. Okay, so we have one copy, 2 copies, 3 copies of 3/10, which is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tenths. We are going to take a look at this final one here. We are looking at 4 copies of 3/10. So let's first look at our 1, 2, 3/10. And then I need 4 copies, or 4 rows of 3/10. So we have 4 copies of 3/10. We have 1, 2, 3 in each row, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So I wonder if you guys are thinking the same thing I am. As you count our tenths, 3, 6, 9, 12, oh dear, we have 12 tenths. Are we allowed to have 2 digits in one place value? No, we are not. This is not going to work. I have a solution though. Let's go ahead and bundle up 10 of our tenths. Let's bundle them up and let's move them next door. Because we know that 10 tenths are equal to 10 tenths are equal to 1. So they're no longer 10 tenths. They've been bundled up or lassoed together, and now we've transferred them into 1, 1. Okay, we cannot have more than 1 digit in our one place value. So now let's see what our final answer is here. When we make 4 copies of 3/10, what we're left with is 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1, 2 tenths. So final product here is 1 and 2 tenths. Very cool, huh? That was one way of modeling using our place value chart. Now we're going to look at another strategy for modeling these multiplication expressions. So here we're looking for 2 copies of 43/100ths. What we're going to do in this type of modeling is we're going to decompose the number. we are going to not judge Mrs. Calamaris for that shaky rectangle, but we are going to decompose the number, meaning we are going to break this number up, 43 hundredths, into 4 tenths and 3 hundredths. If we were to put that on a place value chart really quickly, we could see that 43 hundredths consists of 4 tenths and 3 hundredths. 4 tenths and 3 hundredths. Okay, so this is an area model. I think a lot of you may be familiar with this. The way we're going to set up the area model is going to look like this. Here, we are going to write down 2 because we're looking for 2 copies of 43 hundredths. So in this first box, we are going to write, I'll write this in unit form, 4 tenths. That's this number. In this box, we're decomposing. Remember, we're stretching out the number. In this box, we're going to write 3 hundredths. Or not in this box, on top of that box. So now we have 2 copies of, just like this, 4 tenths, right here, and 3 hundredths. Inside the box, we're actually going to be doing the multiplication. So inside this box, we're going to see this expression, 2 times 4 tenths. Inside this box, or this rectangle, we're going to see this expression, 2 times 3 hundredths. Oops, I forgot an R up here. Okay. And then I'm going to be looking for 2 partial products. 2 times 4 tenths is 8 tenths. These are the lines. For this line, these lines represent our 2 products from the 2 rectangles. Let's figure out what 2 times 3 hundredths is. This is 2 copies of 3 hundredths. Well, I know 2 times 3 is 6. 2 copies of 3 hundredths is 6 hundredths. So what we have now are 2 partial products. Partial products are part of a product. I want to know the final product. In order to consider the final product, we just have to add up our 2 partial products. So we have 8 tenths, that's unit form, here's standard form, plus 6 hundredths. Well, 8 tenths plus 6 hundredths, we can do that a few ways. One way to do that is, never mind that. One way to do that is to put them on our place value chart. 8 tenths plus 6 hundredths. Let's add up what we have. We're finished with this. Let's add up what we have in each column. Nothing plus 6 is 6. Nothing plus 8 is 8. So 8 tenths plus 6 hundredths is 0.86, or 86 hundredths. Let's check out another one. Next, we're looking at 2 copies of 423 thousandths. Recall that in the first problem when we were using the area model, our rectangle was separated into what's going on with my pen? Sorry. Our rectangle was separated into 2 place values. Now, what's happened? Now, this rectangle, I set this up beforehand, so it's a little bit neater. We have 1, 2, 3 place values to the right of the decimal. So our rectangle, what is going on here? Oh. Our rectangle is sectioned off into 3 parts. So let's go ahead and set this one up. Again, we have 2 copies. Why isn't this working? Sorry guys, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this one up. We have 2 copies of 423 thousandths. We are going to decompose 423 thousandths into each place value. This one I'm going to write in standard form. So we have 4 tenths right here, and then we have 2 hundredths right here, and then we have 3 thousandths. We decomposed 423 thousandths into 4 tenths, 2 hundredths, and 3 thousandths. Just think about that as if it were on our friend the place value chart, and you can see how this lines up: 4 tenths, 2 hundredths, 3 thousandths. Now what we need to do is we need to write the expression inside each of our rectangles. So inside our first rectangle, we are going to have 2 times 4 tenths. 2 times 4 tenths. Our second expression is going to be 2 times 2 hundredths. You guys see how that matches up? Our third expression is going to be, again, 2 times, or 2 copies of, now, 3 thousandths. Okay, so we have 2 times 4 tenths, 2 times 2 hundredths, and then 2 times 3 thousandths. Next, we need to find our 1, 2, 3 partial products. Partial product is not a full product. We're going to have 1, 2, 3 partial products, meaning parts of our product. Keep in mind, product is the fancy name for the answer to a multiplication expression. Let's think about what our 3 partial products will be. 2 copies of 4 tenths. 2 copies of 4 tenths. Well, I know 2 copies of 4 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8, but this is not 8 1. I'm sorry, this is not 4 ones. This is 4 tenths. So 2 copies of 4 tenths is going to be 8 tenths. Okay, let's look here. Now we have 2 copies of 2 hundredths. Well, I know 2 copies of 2 is 4, but that's 4 ones. No, is this 4 ones? No, this is hundredths. So 2 copies of 2 hundredths is going to be 4 hundredths. Let's look here. We have 2 copies of 3 thousandths. Well, I know 2 times 3 is 6, but it's not 6 ones, is it? It's 6 thousandths. So what we have here, friends, is that we have 3 partial products. Now we have to figure out what is our final product. We can figure out what our final product is by putting these numbers on a place value chart. Well, that's one of the ways we can do this. So let's put 8 tenths on our place value chart. Let's put 4 hundredths on our place value chart. Here, again, I'm putting 3 partial products onto our place value chart. And then let's go ahead and put our 6 thousandths. Let's determine what our final answer is here. We're done with this one. What do I have in my thousandths place value? I have 6 thousandths. And then we have 4 hundredths. And then we have 8 tenths. So 8 tenths plus 4 hundredths plus 6 thousandths, when added together, is going to be 846 thousandths. Okay, one last problem here. Before we get into this final problem, secret word is the color of the ink that I am using right now. We're getting into one final problem here. We're going to use our place value chart again to model. The secret word is the color of the ink that I am using right now. Okay, so here we have 4 copies of 423 thousandths. Again, we have 1, 2, 3 place values shown in whatever we're making copies of. So I have 1, 2, 3 different sections of my place value chart. Along this side, we are going to draw a 4 because we're making 4 copies. And then in each section of our area model, we're going to decompose 423 thousandths. hopefully this looks familiar because it's the same number that we just used. When we decompose 423 thousandths, we are left with 4 tenths, and then we have 2 hundredths, and finally we are looking at 3 thousandths. Inside each of these boxes, inside of each of these rectangles, we're going to write the expression. So our first expression is going to be 4 copies of 4 tenths. 4 copies of 4 tenths looks like this in expression form. Second expression is going to be 4 copies of, that's right, 2 hundredths. Finally, we have 4 copies of 3 thousandths. Please make sure that you have completed one of these problems with me along in your math notebook. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 expressions. Now we need to figure out our 1, 2, 3 partial products. We have 3 expressions. We are going to evaluate each of these expressions, and then we'll have 3 partial products. A partial product is not a final answer though. Our partial products must be added together so that we can land at our final product. We are going to put that one in this amazing box right here. Okay, so let's think about 4 copies of 4 tenths. Well, I know 4 copies of 4 is 16. But these are 16 ones. 4 copies of 4 tenths is going to look like 16 tenths. Don't forget your decimals. 4 copies of 2 hundredths. Well, I know 4 copies of 2 is 8, but this is not the correct place value. We're looking at 4 copies of 2 hundredths. So that is going to be 8 hundredths. Finally, we're looking at 4 copies of 3 thousandths. Well, I know 4 times 3 is 12. Please pay attention to your place value. This is 12. 4 copies of 3 thousandths is going to be 12 thousandths. Let's go ahead and add these up so we can have our final product. Let's add these up using a place value chart again. Keep in mind the place value chart is not the only way to add up these 3 partial products, but I really like adding up partial products using my place value chart because it's really visual and very well organized. Okay, so first we have 1.6, beautiful, and then we have 8 hundredths, 0.08, and then we have 0.012 or 12 thousandths. Okay, so we're adding these up, 3 partial products. Let's evaluate what we have in each column. Well, nothing plus 2 is 2. 8 plus 1 is 9. 6 plus 0 and 0 is 6. Don't forget our decimal, and then we have a 1. Okay, so our final product here, friends, is 1.692. I will see you guys Friday for more practice. This is going to be so much fun.